my zone. Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Let me into my zone. Please don't let me.
Hello? Is this thing... It's on. I think it's on at least. I hope I'm recording, and I hope that microphone's working. I've been having technical difficulties all morning, so I suppose I'll just find out after this 30-minute to hour-long video if this one's actually going to be working. But I would like to wish you a happy and healthy start to your Sunday morning from here, from a very dark and actually quite frigid Helsinki, Finland. As always, we're going to be talking about long-term analysis because it is Sunday, but because there has been some very nice moves in the overnight session, actually hitting our next blue box of peace and prosperity. Once again, low time frames will be a focus as well, so perhaps a little bit more of a longer video in the making, or maybe it's reverse psychology and today's actually going to be a very short video. Who knows? The the mystery continues as always. Anyways, what else do I want to say? Oh, I will very likely be on Twitch later today. I'm gonna have to make an offering, a sacrifice to goat Jesus in exchange for this, but I really want to be on today, so I'm gonna really try my best to make a few sacrifices in my early morning, and perhaps I can do a stream a little bit later, perhaps starting around somewhere between like 8 to 9 about 8 to 9 a.m. Eastern time. So if you are waking up in the Western Hemisphere, or if you're just staying up all night doing all who knows of what, well, I'll be there with you, my friends. And for those of you out in the Eastern Hemisphere of this world, waking up in Europe right now, sharing a cup of coffee, well, happy afternoon, perhaps in the not so distant future. Anyways, also the Krown trading application is live. I've been saying this for like the last fucking 3 weeks, so you probably already know that, but I want to remind you that it is free, 100% free. It's found at app.crowntrading.crown. Can't even say my own name right. How fucking moronic can I be? app.crowntrading.net. And again, it's just like it's think of it as like a thank you from us to you, to the community, because we want to be building up this community as best we can, and in the best way that we know how to. And the best way to do that is to offer up, well, what we consider some pretty damn cool tools. I mean, this is something that I actually use myself. So speaking of, let's actually get into the live stream right now. I would like to wish you the best and the happiest of the happiest, because it is Sunday, and it's most important because today's like a special day apparently, and that's when you're really supposed to be nice to people. Anyways, we say it here every day because that's what's most important, at least in my opinion. And as always, wish you well. Let's get in a live stream right now, my friends, and check out the app actually as we speak of it. And most importantly, right here, we see that open interest is still at that over 1.4 billion. It's billion with a B. And if you remember from yesterday, it's actually gone up a little bit. So even with Bitcoin moving up, like these whole last couple weeks, the open interest has not had that effect that we've been looking, or that you'd expect from this. But that's not to say that it's not working. What it implies is that when Bitcoin does get that earth-shattering move, which is what this implies we will get, and I'm very, very likely we will, that move is going to be even more violent, even more pulverizing, even more volatile than what it would have been just a day prior. With each and every passing day that this goes on without this breaking, while open interest looms this high, that's very, very interesting. And we're going to always keep that in the back of my minds here because, well, when we look at long-term analysis, we want to know where that next major inflection point is that could actually cause that next major move, which of course, can always come to the upside or the downside when you're looking at open interest. But that's why we use tentacles on top of that to kind of come up with a bias from there. And then we can look at probabilities on top of that. And that's where usually the magic comes through as a trader. So using tentacle analysis as their edge. Anyways, getting the charts right now, and Bitcoin once again hitting the next blue box of peace and prosperity to the upside. 10,150 to 10,300 is the range encompassed here, and this was initiated, as we spoke about yesterday, after getting a 4-hour total closure above 98.50ish region, which we got quite literally right as I was going to bed. And then when I woke up, Bitcoin was in 5 digits once again. Absolutely beautiful. God damn, man. Just lovely to wake up to. And I'm sure that a lot of people are happy right now. Now, I will say, because this is happening on a weekend, I am a little bit apprehensive about this. But because the higher time frames are more or less good, and more importantly, we did already see CMEs close for the week, which closed well above the last prior high on a weekly closing basis. Sorry, let me actually bring it over to a weekly right here. That is the big deal to me. And I do think that, while Bitcoin did take this next leg up into the $10,000 targeted region, over the weekend, we probably do come back down to fill the gap. But I do believe that would likely be likely be a nice bounce area, as most importantly, CME showing the way and closing on new highs, actually completing a reversal. Technically, we want to see a higher low being put in at some point in time. That's going to make everyone hold their breath. But for right now, the big news is that we're very, very likely to see this, fully confirmed on spot price action later tonight at 7 p.m. Eastern time. But this was the key critical ingredient right here, making us, solidifying that bullish bias, continuing onwards and into the weekend. I thought that this move was likely going to happen during the week's price action, but that's why timing is not like really something that I really look towards to. But looking at this right here, weekly CME is closing above the last prior high on a closure base, which is much more powerful than a wick. Not only completes this as a reversal, marking our first weekly reversal since quite literally the breakdown in September from 10.3 all the way down to, in totality, like 6.3, 6.4. Once again, we've actually got our higher high in place. So the weekly reversal is so important on Bitcoin long term because those have precipitated all the major massive moves. When we're looking at the history of Bitcoin, and I'm going to kind of fly around all the different charts here, every time that the weekly trend has had a reversal, that's your major massive move to the upside, and that's also your major massive move to the downside. We're talking about 70% moves to the downside, and we're talking about, for example, right here to the upside, there's your reversal. That's 6,291 and 47% move. Not always going to be that impressive, but more recently we saw a reversal to the upside right here. That was a lovely almost 250% move to the upside, and then when we saw the reversal to the downside, and this is kind of an outlier, as not as nasty as the other ones, about a 36% move to the downside right here. Of course, in 2018, just give this a little bit more validity, and you should go look at this yourself as well. You get your first weekly reversal right here, 81% down. Okay, enough of that. My point is that the weekly reversals do hold a shit ton of weight long term for Bitcoin. CME is already confirming this, and with spot hanging out well above the last prior weekly high with this last little breakout that we saw, very, 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 very likely to fully confirm this as well. Anywhere above 95.50 to 9600 is good enough. Now, I would say that because CMEs did close at about 98.50, and remember, they do have about $100 price premium on spot price action. We very likely do come back down and fill the gap, but I would be looking for a bounce there, and I'm overall bullish. Short terms, that floats around a lot, but medium, long term, and macro term, as long as Bitcoin is above 95.50, 9600-ish region on a higher time frame closing, 12-hour minimum. That's not a higher time frame. It's like a medium time frame. Daily would be a little bit better, and weekly is like the is like the judge, I suppose, the judge, jury, and witness, or whatever the fuck that saying is. I don't even know, man, but sounds good in that context. Anyways, not only this, but CME's confirming an inverted head and shoulders reversal pattern coming off the lows as volume expands to the upside. Very, 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 very nice. Now, tying that back in to the open interest being this high, suggesting that we have yet to see the big bad move, I would say that, this is set up right here, coming into the next couple weeks here as, sorry, I guess I already have the measure move on this. This inverted head and shoulders actually does have a measure move all the way up towards about 11,500 to 12,000 bucks. Not saying it's going there today. I'm not saying it's going there tomorrow. I'm saying it probably, probably just floats its way upwards and onwards there over the next couple months. But of course, as always, on the lower time frames, and I what's where them deliberately left them out. Those are going to ebb and flow, as lower time frames typically do. Anyways, I'm just making sure that I'm actually recording. Okay, the microphone's, I think, working right now. I'm not so sure though. So, like I said, it'll just be a surprise at the end of this video, maybe, if it works or not. But yeah, looking at this right here, this area does line up with a lot of different things. Not only is it a measure move off this inverted head and shoulders, but also it is the last major, or it's the only major gap present on the board for CMEs coming in around this region as well. And I believe if we put on some sort of a, I'm sure that if we put on some sort of a Fibonacci retracement, I'm sure that there's like something in there as well. I'm going to guess like a 786 or an 882 or something like that. Or is it 882 or 881? I'm getting all mixed up right now, but let's do a bearish retracement on this one. Bearish retracement would show actually nothing there, funnily enough. Let's see what a bullish retracement would show. show about the 382. It looks like, depending upon whether you use if you use bodies, it would show about the 236. If you use wicks, it'd show about the 382. At the end of the day, we just know that that area is relevant no matter which way you kind of paint it, whether it's wicks or bodies, which, you know, is unfortunately the way they kind of have to do with Fibonacci retracements anyways, just because sometimes you just find something that works and sometimes you don't. But anyways, more importantly with this, as long as we're above 9550, 9600 pivot on spot price action, overall fine, overall good. I do think that Bitcoin probably pops back down and tests around where CME's closed on Friday, which would be akin to about 9750-ish region. But I do think that that is going to be a nice bounce area. When does that test back down there come? I don't know. I would imagine that you know, if it came sooner rather than later, that would actually be considered as good. But this is pretty strong price action right here. This is very, very constructive, very healthy. And I actually would not be surprised if Bitcoin, at the very least, makes another move up into the top portion of this next blue box territory at 10.3 before playing out any sort of a short-term, medium-term top, as everything is looking more or less good right here. More importantly, I haven't really been speaking too much towards this, but we'll spend a little bit of time on it right now. The golden cross on Bitcoin exponential moving averages right here between the green and the purple, 50 and the 200, is getting significant divergence away from each other. And I would say that essentially as long as Bitcoin's above the 21 exponential moving average, it's very, very nice. And that 21 exponential moving average is crawling up very rapidly here too, about $50 each and every day, I believe it is. And it's currently at about 9,300. So if that does get above that 9,550, 9,600 region, that's around the time when I probably would look for a test back down around there. You know, to kind of fill that gap and just retest the breakout. And whether you're looking at CMEs or you're looking at spot, CMEs have, you know, the inverted head and shoulders. Spot actually has more of an Adam and Eve formation. A lot of people ask me if this is a fucking cup and handle. It's actually not a cup and handle if you want to get like super exact with it, because cup and handles are continuation formations, not reversal formations. Inverted head and shoulders are reversal formations, and Adam and Eves are reversal formations. What's the message at the end of the day that's more important? Reversal. I just don't understand why pattern traders get so wrapped up in this. You don't need to identify a pattern properly in order to play it properly. That's actually the funny part about patterns. And more often than not, if you're just going level by level, horizontal level by level, you're gonna get the move anyways. So it's always better, in my experience, to deduce and simplify rather than try to do too much all at once. Anyways, this is only going to be let me actually get on to the daily RSI. Remember the last few days that we've been looking at the daily RSI as likely an ascending triangle here. Well, I do believe that is about to be confirmed to the upside, and we're probably gonna see a move that brings us into the critical zone for the bullish control territory. More importantly, longer term, this fully and formally completes this as a change of behavior after Bitcoin was rejected from the bullish control zone ever since when? Ever since fucking June, which was at the highs. Hey, stop. Hold on, talking to myself once again, which was at the highs at about $14,000 and kicked out of there and rejected from each and every try into the bullish control zone since then on all these spikes. That's right here. That's right here. That's more recently right here. But with Bitcoin being resilient within this region and consolidating at a high level alongside the bullish control zone, that is leading into a constructive breakout to the upside. And I do believe that we're going to see a not only just confirmed change of behavior, which essentially, we're back into bull territory. But I'd like to see daily RSI get back around this region right here, and then probably put in the next like medium term high, if you want to call it that, and probably come back down and consolidate for a little bit. Anyways, let's see. Okay, cool. What else do we want to talk about? Yes, historical volatility percentile on a daily is relatively low here. Now it is contracting over the whole. But more importantly, it is very, very low just at the current stature of it. And what does that imply? Well, again, tying it back into the open interest on the on the Krown trading applications that we showed you earlier. This is saying that still that move, that major massive move that that I think a lot of people are looking for, it hasn't happened yet. If you think that it's happened already, it is not, or at least that's what the data would show. We're still in an area of pretty low volatility, relatively speaking, and open interest being that high. I mean, that's rocket fuel for for a major massive move. Not only that, but with momentum also is relatively healthy to the upside right here. You already know my fucking bias. My bias is to the bull side, especially seen as CME weekly has already confirmed a new high, not a new high, but confirmed above its last prior weekly high, which has reverted the trend. And I believe that's, it's just kind of a technicality that we're waiting for spot to follow a little bit later tonight, confirmed later at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Anyways, I don't really care for any stochastic reads on any time frame. Actually, this is the funny part. We are starting to see stochastics really take on the same interpretation as what you expect to see in traditional market. When you see a strong trending move, you can expect that it will get stuck up in this region, and that's exactly what it should be. Everyone who's calling, oh, the stokes are overbought, Bitcoin must go down, chart, are the same people that have been calling bullish divergence the whole way fucking through and don't even understand that bullish divergence, not bullish divergence, but bearish divergence, it's the same people calling bearish divergence every fucking time Bitcoin just makes a slightly new high, not realizing that you need to confirm a local high between there. And it looks like Bitcoin's actually making a leg towards 10.3 as we speak, maybe. Nicely done. Do I have anything to be aware of over here? No, I don't, apparently. But just waiting for little scalp trades to come on through. Anyways, and I've also got I don't know what's in the water or something like that, but I've also got a shit ton of messages of people saying like, hey, Krown, isn't there hidden bearish divergence? You understand, you can't have hidden bearish divergence in an uptrend. You can never have hidden bearish divergence in an uptrend, and you can never have hidden bullish divergence in a downtrend. Ever. Part of the explanation of it, part of the definition of it is quite literally in the same direction of that trend. So for example, hidden bearish divergence has to be during a downtrend. It's basically continuation divergence. It's telling you where the bounces are going to peter out, and vice versa for a hidden bullish divergence. Anyways, obviously caught on something right there. I do apologize about that. Probably just annoying to listen to me repeat dumb shit. Anyways, looking at 2-day right here, 2-day RSI looking very, very healthy. Really, really like it. Maintaining back above the bullish control zone for the first time since fucking June, of course. Well, you can kind of expect that since looking at the 2-day, but just kind of confirming that fact a little bit more. And just as important, we do see that 2-day historical volatility percentile has been contracting over the long period of time, agreeing with the daily with further, confirms it essentially. I'm not saying that they're like, obtuse to each other, but we expect them to act with each other if it's going to be more valid. And yes, they do. Same thing with 3-day. In fact, 3-day is incredibly low right now. There's only been a few times in history that we've actually been this low on 3-day historical volatility percentile, and that was quite literally in October of 2018. If I remind you right here, that was dropped from 6,000 to 3,000. Time before that was actually right here on the drop from 10,000 to 6,000. Time before that was on a pump up from, well, basically like 500 to 20,000. Time before that was 250 for like a 2 or 3x a few months later. You get the idea. Again, direction is not implied by these things, but it does imply major massive moves. Again, agreeing with the open interest, again, agreeing with formations, and agreeing with, well, trend giving us a bias, as well as many tentacles giving us a bias to the upside here. So I do still remain bullish based off that. And weekly momentum oscillators are also looking quite healthy. This was the big one for me coming into last week. We saw weekly Bitcoin RSI confirm above this blue box territory, as I've been saying for the past like fucking few months, or well, really I've had this in here for like years now. But speaking about it the last couple months, as long as Bitcoin is above this blue box territory, I'm not bearish, and I do think that it gets pulled back into it and we'll retest it at some point in time. And I would likely look for a long-term position at that level. Who knows what price level that correlates with? It doesn't matter to me. It just offers up an edge, which means again it's not like 100% guaranteed to work out. But I just know that I'm interested in taking a position there, and this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, because if I am to be wrong in that trade, I don't have to risk all that much in order to figure out I don't have to risk all that much in order to figure out when I'm going to be wrong if I get it as close as I can to this blue box territory. But over the history of Bitcoin, since the genesis, anytime that RSI is above this level, we're generally bullish. It likes to base off that level during your bull trends, and vice versa for downtrends. And what do already know, historical volatility percentile on the weekly for Bitcoin is absolutely fucking crushed at the same levels that have precipitated all major massive moves, like major earth-shattering fucking moves in the past. We're talking about back in March 2019 before 4,000 all the way to 14,000. We're talking about October 2016 before this major move here from like 500, 600 bucks to 20,000. Time before that was back on over here on this low at 230, and time before that was, well, actually right here, not so long ago. Not so far between those two. But anyways, that's what I'm looking at right now. And of course, not only do we have those targets to the upside, which right now we're kind of in that blue box territory here between 10.1 and 10.3. This one's a medium-term time frame target. The big long-term time frame target is actually up here between 11.5 and 12,000. And not only do we see it mediated on a pattern measured move that we saw on CMEs. If we look at if we look at spot price action, the Adam and Eve would be pointed up there as well, and also major Fibonacci's. And also, if we do pull this back out and we do put on volume profile, it would suggest that this is kind of like the last of the relatively higher value nodes. Of course, it's not even that high in this region to begin with, but after that, it just completely gets annihilated up here. So it suggests that it is a big change of behavior above that level. And of course, on spot price action, that is essentially where we've gotten rejected, not just on these last couple weekly highs right here, coming in from June, July, and August, but also the one that really sent Bitcoin into this diabolic downtrend, in my opinion, back in February 2018, when Bitcoin had a double rejection at 12,000 right here. This is the same area, and people loading the same shorts within this region, causing the same sort of reactions and price action. So Bitcoin getting back above that area would be a major macro, super macro, change of behavior. I do think that Bitcoin is going to test that region, but I would keep an eye out that not only do we have, again, CME pattern measure move pointed up there, CME gap up there as well, major Fibonacci's up there, volume profile suggesting up there, and also spot price action just showing the history of the rejections within this region. That's the area of major fuckery for the long term. So I'm not saying that Bitcoin's going to head up to that region anytime soon. Could still take like a month or two, whatever it is. I do think that this price action is very, very strong, but overall, if and when Bitcoin does get up there, I would exercise caution, as you're probably going to see a lot of people get very, 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 very exuberant, and that's going to be the time to be, in my opinion, that's going to be the time to be a little bit more cautious if you're looking at this from a long-term perspective. Anyways, Jesus Christ, man. What the fuck? getting all these notifications for messages and whatnot. Should turn that off. Should learn to turn that off, actually, more importantly. Anyways, looking at spending a little bit more time here on the weekly Stokes also confirming a change of behavior last week, along with the RSI. So both of these momentum oscillators, the value in them is that they prematurely told us that this was going to happen. This is why we had that bias. Why I was looking for price action to go up over this last couple weeks. We've been pretty much, on this price action, just getting more and more bullish as each and every level gets passed, ever since 69, calling the bottom right there, then 7,500 right here, and then 8,500 right there. That has just been, the nice stair stepping up. It's funny though, because I've actually been speaking quite frequently with my mentor recently, and while I got those moves, and going level by level, I do feel very, very comfortable with the way that he does things and the way that he called it. He called the bottom right here well before me, but he doesn't go level by level in the way that I do. I was going level by level, so it's a little bit slower. But he's just like, nope, this looks good right here. This is what a bottom looks like. This thing is massively bullish right now. He actually is not. I don't know if he's like a fan of Bitcoin or not, but he really, really likes a chart, which was interesting to me. So a little bit of difference, coming from the same background. But as always, that's why we want to have community, because everyone has different views and different viewpoints on these sorts of things. Your unique experience adds onto that look, and so when we all share with each other, well, we come to a better understanding of it. So that's why I talk with him frequently, and a lot of other people in this community as well, who do have unique and well thought out points. Even if sometimes we don't agree, it helps to really learn from other people. And that's just a humongous value in having this community. Anyways, weekly Stokes, of course, opening back up, but more importantly, above the bearish control zone, which has held down all the bear markets before. It's by no mistake that it was all below this level all throughout 2018 and getting rejected from it. And then where does it break back above? March 2019, of course, on that break from 4,000 to 14,000, and then more recently from September 10.3 all the way down, and then more recently breaking back up above last week, and now really looking powerful here. And in my opinion, probably, very, very likely to continue onwards and upwards. Now, all we've been doing as of recent times is just talking about the higher time frames. And maybe should I go into lower time frames now, or should I cover up fundamentals right now? Let's actually cover up fundamentals right now. So let's go check out the Bitcoin VWAP ratio. We've been looking at this for quite some time. I'll briefly go of the explanation here. Basically, what I'm looking at here is 3 different moving averages on the VWAP. We got the blue, which is the most reactive, purple, medium reactive, pink, least reactive, and their relationship between each other is very important to understand this, but also their relationship to where my cursor currently is right now. That is the key critical point that sets everything else up for this after what follows. And what that means is that anytime that we see all 3 of those guys above or below where my cursor currently is right now, just run a regression right through there. We're generally bullish. We're generally bullish if we're above, generally bearish if below. But then the relationship between each other and then the divergence between each other speaks to the strength and then kind of like implied time that you're going to be in that trend over the long term. So if we do see the most reactive above the medium reactive, above the least reactive, that's your bull market right here, and vice versa to the downside. And as we've been looking at, just even the relationship between the purple and the pink, the medium reactive and the least reactive, alongside the regression, has actually called all the major moves in Bitcoin's past on like weekly reversals in advance, just as we look at on the other indicators as well. But this one also confirmed a couple weeks ago and set in that bullish bias. And I'm just kind of following up on this sort of stuff because I don't think that Bitcoin is, while I do think Bitcoin's gonna have an ebb and flow, I don't think that it's done yet. I'm quite bullish on Bitcoin actually. But again, as long as it remains above 9550, 9600, that is a key ingredient. But zeroing in on it right here, we're seeing this emerge more and more. So it's maturing now. So just as a couple weeks ago, we saw the purple get above the pink, above the regression line. Now we're actually seeing the perfect splaying bullish attempt that we expect to see in a strong uptrending market. With when you see the blue above the purple, above the pink, all above the regression, and now gaining divergence away from each other, that's the strength of that speaks to like something that we saw in 2016 going all the way to 2018, right? So what we expect to see going over and through the next few weeks is for them to gain more and more divergence away from each other, and that's gonna essentially imply that we are in a healthy uptrend, which I do think that Bitcoin is in one. We can also look at the Bitcoin difficulty ribbon as we come into the halving date, and I think it's like May. We do see that the bands make a dance. No, but bands are actually expanding right now, right? And going through the past examples, we do see that typically the difficulty ribbon contracts coming into the halving date, and then after the halving date starts to expand, and then price action follows through with it. And without fail, anytime that we see them contract, that's your contraction phase in price action as well. Some people call them corrections, some people call them crashes. I think 70% down is a crash, but fair enough. And then more importantly, recently, we're starting to see it actually expand once again. Check this out right here. It is quite literally bouncing off of each other and suggesting that this is, real sustained price action that you can expect to likely go more to the upside for using history as some sort of a tool here. So longer term, I really like a lot of what I see, not just from a technical perspective, but also fundamental perspective, with 12,000 being a key critical point and 9,550 being a key critical point. So that's what I'd say right there. Now, if 95, let's actually talk about the downside for a second over the long term. Now, if 9,550, 9,600 does get violated to the downside, I would expect to see Bitcoin come back down to about 7,500 actually, and that would be a phenomenal textbook secondary opportunity. I would actually not be bearish at all at 7,500. I would actually be very, very bullish at 7,500. And then if we lose 7,500, I would become extremely bearish. But That's if and only if Bitcoin breaks about 9,600 to the downside on a higher time frame closing. For right now, upside looks a lot more likely, and upside is where I'd be looking right now. Even on the lower time frames, of which we showed at the beginning of this video, we actually are in the next targeted region, right smack dab in the middle of this blue box territory, which encompasses a region between about 10.1 to about 10.3. So I do think that Bitcoin finds a short-term top somewhere around 10.3 most likely. And we will likely be creating some divergences by that time. Let's confirm that though. Actually, with the way that things are acting right now, no divergences to be found on a 4-hour. So to be fair, actually no, that would be incorrect. Let's see if any is forming on a 12-hour. Maybe if Bitcoin puts in a high on this next 12-hour dildo, it could form some divergence, and that's at the point where I expect price action to come back down and fill the gap where CME's left off on Friday, probably somewhere down around like 97.50-ish region. So if I did have to call it right now, I do think that Bitcoin probably pops back down and tests around 97.50-ish region and bounces from there. And as long as Bitcoin, and then I just expect it to kind of float onwards and upwards and look at the lower time frames to judge actually where those inflection points are. By the way, checking on 12-hour right here, historical volatility percentile has been winding up ever since when? Ever since December, middle of December, which is quite literally on the fucking low right here, smack dab 6,500 to the fucking T. And what does that mean? That means that we've been contracting ever since then. So this whole move right here, has yet to see its fruition, like its fruitional eruption, I suppose you could say. Again, tying things in with open interest, volatility on the other higher time frames, and then of course formations and trend, of course. And where would this suggest that we do see a big break? Actually, not until this would be a week or two, about another later in February, not the last week of February, but like the second to last week of February. We likely do see a move actually. Like a big move, the big move that we're kind of posturing for. I'm curious what the daily says as well. Does it agree with it? Yeah, more or less. Not as obviously speaking, but the 12-hour getting it very, very well. So yeah, liking everything that I see right there. I don't really see any reason to be bearish on Bitcoin as long as it's above, especially 9,600 from a medium or higher time frame perspective. Lower time frame is going to ebb and flow. I would imagine that Bitcoin probably puts in a lower time frame top somewhere around 10.3-ish region. And then, coming into like the early, Monday, Tuesday, maybe we see that pullback back down around this blue box. And actually we can move this blue box up now. Although I do want that still in there. We need one to represent the CME or the CME close from Friday. So let's get rid of this guy down here. It's not all that necessary anymore. Let's go. Should be somewhere around 97.50. All right, so we'll put us. These ones are too close to each other for it to like really have a strong meaning. But this one's a really important one from the macro. This one's important for short term, medium term. So yeah. And this guy, we can actually zoom in on over here as well. If Bitcoin does come down around there, I would expect a bounce, but that's pretty far away right now. Anyways, like I said, momentum monsters like Stokes don't give a fuck about what they're saying during a strong trending move. In fact, actually, funnily enough, during strong trending moves on like the macro, you actually do find a lot of use in the hourly. And the hourly stocks have been really fucking good recently. They've been really fucking good recently, funnily enough. And hourly historical volatility percentile is also on the whole looking like it's contracting me. Or am I wrong on that? And we're actually expanding right now because we did make a spike high above that last one. You know what? I have to look to the 2 hour. Okay, the 2 hours still contracting, 3 hours still contracting, 4 hours still contracting. Okay, so it's most likely contracting. That was a one-off over bullshit weekend price action. So yeah, sorry, putting these back on right here. Now, while I don't think Bitcoin takes out 10.3 before the new week starts, I don't think that Bitcoin's gonna like take out this level before the new weekly starts. If it were to, I would look for a move actually all the way up to about 10.5. So another tack on another couple $100 bucks to it, probably like 10.550 around this spike high that we saw in late October. That's again not a humongous area. The next like medium time frame area I'd want to be aware of is this guy right here, which I'll mark off right now between about 10.9 and 11,000 even. So this only short term relevant. This one short term medium relevant. This one medium term relevant. And let me put in another blue box here. So just preparing for the future here, just in case because Bitcoin can do some crazy things, and this might be one of those times. But for right now, I don't think that Bitcoin's going to be taking out this area like today, tomorrow, or sorry, actually, well, potentially tomorrow, but probably not until we see a pullback first from this current region. But am I playing the short side? Absolutely fucking not. I have no interest in playing the short side right here. Not unless Bitcoin goes down below like about 95.50, 9600. Anyways, oh, we forgot to talk about the weekly movement averages as well. I mean, there's really not too much to be said about the lower term timeframes. They all look more or less fine, more or less healthy, and probably setting up for a pullback relatively soon. Maybe another $100-200 higher towards 10.3 region, but after that, not so confident about that. We don't have anything new to talk about on CMEs or GBDC or traditional or Forex because they've all been close. We can look at some of the other top shitcoins to kind of round out biases here. But before we do that, I do want to go back to the weekly and actually flesh out this idea just a little bit more. So again, just another major thing that we've been looking at for a long time. The major movement averages on the weekly, first and foremost, we're above all major movement averages. Big fucking deal. That sounds like I'm saying it facetiously. I'm not. It is a big fucking deal. But more importantly, the 21 exponential moving average and the 10 simple moving average, the yellow and the red respectively, have been so critical into getting this long-term right. And remember, just a couple weeks ago, we got our first open and close above the yellow 21 exponential moving average right here, and then we got a positive slope on it the week after that. That was really what, again, set in that kind of bullish bias. And to me, it looks like it's ready here. Long term, you can see that Bitcoin, again, since the genesis during upwards markets, loves to play off the yellow 21 exponential moving average, and the slope of the 21 exponential moving average helps you avoid those fake outs where you do get closes above or closes below without reverting actual trend, without reverting actual direction. So in this case, when Bitcoin is above the yellow 21 exponential moving average and it has a positive slope, I would expect that to be a base scenario longer term. And perhaps when that 21 exponential moving average, which is currently right around 8,500, gets somewhere around maybe 95, 9,600, perhaps that would be another good area, good time to be looking for a test back down to that region as well. So I do want to give myself a little bit of a backdoor exit here because I don't have an opinion on whether Bitcoin tests back down to like 9,750, 9,700 sooner rather than later. But if we were to see this next leg getting taken up here and you really see like Bitcoin maybe close this weekly above 10.3 and you don't get that pullback, I probably wouldn't expect a pullback until you see that 21 start to crawl around there, and that would be the next major opportunity, and it's probably going to come alongside a retest of the RSI back into this blue box territory here. And I'm getting way ahead of myself doing terrible technical analysis because what am I doing essentially? I'm doing crystal ball type thinking, which is wrong, which I want to be deliberately clear in stating is fucking wrong. But that is kind of, if I could postulate in the future, because this is long-term analysis video today, so it is a little bit more ephemeral and less tangible. That's what I'd be looking at. Anyways, what else do we want to talk about? Have I talked off your ear already? Jesus Christ, man, it's already 35 minutes long, and I feel like I haven't said all that much. Let's go back down into lower term timeframes and check out the expected moves chart with the critical areas in mind. Remember, critical areas in mind. Macro, 95.50 to the downside and really like 12,000 to the upside. But medium term, we got 97.50. About 97.50 to the downside, CME open essentially, and 10.3, that's both short and medium term. And then if 10.3 gets taken out to the upside, I would expect something to be represented at 10.5, 10.550. So let's go check them out right here and see what the probabilities are. Should we still be bullish based off this? And yes, the probabilities still are on the upside. We actually do see on a daily, the top side of the first deviation is coming in where? 10,350. So right in line with our blue box territory that we're currently kind of in the midst of. So I don't really expect Bitcoin to break above that today. That would be less than a 16% chance in the next 24-hour session. And by the daily total close, which is also going to be the weekly close, that would be actually even less chance than that, because the top side of the first deviation is coming in at 10,250, which is kind of a little bit more where I think it probably does find a little bit of a local top at. Of course, if Bitcoin were to take out that level to the upside and head up towards our 10.5 resistance, very, 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 very likely it would find a top there, especially if it happened before end of day, because where is that? That's literally right at the top side of the third standard deviation to the upside, which is less than a 1% chance to happen to get taken out in this next 12-hour period, which again is around around the daily to close. By the same token, to the downside, this is suggesting that Bitcoin is just not bearish here. On a 12-hour closing schedule, very, very likely we even come back down to like 9,800. I mean, less than a 1% chance to the downside there. And even the bottom side of the first deviation is really fucking strong here. It's a little bit over 10,000 right now. Less than a 16% chance the weekly closes below 10,000. That's really impressive. So, am I wrong to be thinking that Bitcoin does have that pullback to fill the CME gap from Friday? Probabilities would say yes. That is the wrong bias to have. The better bias is to look for maybe a local top in that 10.2 to 10.3 region, and then maybe a test back down to the lower 10,000s, but probably continuation after that. Same thing here. The second standard deviation on the daily. So this is 1 day out now. Looking at 9,700 for the second standard deviation. That's the second fucking standard deviation. So in order to just destroy the short and medium time frame picture, Bitcoin has less than a 2.5% chance to break that to the downside in the next 24 hours. In 9,500 coming in right at this level right here, so you can kind of read that as 9,550, close enough, less than a 1% chance. So very, very unlikely that Bitcoin is going to revert the trend here. The probabilities are on the side of the upside. The question is just where are these short-term pullbacks, and where would I look for Bitcoin to set up a little bit of a base, and where are the major macro areas. So that is really, 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 really critical in kind of what we're going to be looking at over this next week. So always keep this in the back of your mind, because as Bitcoin continues on, it actually strengthens. It does not weaken, and that's what we expect from a macro reversal here, which can lead on into those earth-shattering effects of having a massive amount of open interest on the board, while volatility is very, very low, and trend and formations and fibs and all sorts of momentum oscillators are all pointed in this case to the upside. So my bias is the upside. I'm still bullish. Even in the short-term timeframes, it looks like Bitcoin might have like another $100 move to the upside here, to hit somewhere around like 10,250 to 10,300. But I don't think that we take out this area right here. The probabilities are not on the side of that, at least in the next day of action. So probably by the next time that we speak together, or that it's kind of like a one-sided conversation, I guess. Although there is a comment section. It's also like sometimes you can look at the comment section. It's like your daily dose of hate, which fair enough. I totally understand it. Everyone wants to express themselves. Fair enough. It's a free world. It's free speech, but interesting nonetheless. Anyways, looking at this right here, more or less fine. I do think that we probably put in a local top somewhere around this region, and then spend this next week consolidating the short terms, and likely get another leg up, falling through after that. That's what the probabilities would say. That's what the trend would say. That's what momentum would say. So I trust all those things, and that looks all good to me. With the caveat that is that's all my bias, as long as 9750-ish holds, and I do think that we retest 9750-ish at some point. The question is, do we head on to like 12,000 first, or maybe top out in the mid 10s and then head down? Anyways, let's go check out the other top shitcoins, kind of gauge a general bias on this. And actually, I'm also curious, is there any jewel signals going on here? I'm guessing not. Yeah, probably not. Okay, there's not going to be anything present on lower term time frames. Not anything on higher either, actually. Maybe on a 3 day. No, 3 days not even showing. Yeah, no, not really. They are kind of getting a little bit overdone there, though, to be fair. Okay, cool. Let's go check out the other top shitcoins, see how they're acting. Mr. Beaterall hitting our 235 target, I believe. Did it hit our 235 target? No, 230 target. So I have the blue box between 230 and 235. Hit the lower end of that at 230, but I do think that it's going to probably make another move here with Bitcoin and hit the top side of that box about 235, 236 region. I would look for a local top there, though. This should be a good short-term reversal area. Mrs. Litecoin, remember $78 to $80 was a targeted region, and I believe we've hit it. Yes, we have. Nicely done, Mrs. Litecoin. I think same thing here. If Bitcoin takes a leg up to like 10.3, I'd expect to move to like $80, but I don't think it has momentum to actually break it right now. To the upside, I think that we're going to see a short-term consolidation to the downside. Maybe that's when Bitcoin fills a gap. We'll come back and analyze that at a different date. What about Ripple Me Nipples? Looking good here as well, actually. Next major resistance somewhere right around about 31 cents. However, still has not confirmed fully above 28 and a quarter, but more or less good, more or less acting pretty healthily here. What else do we want to look at? EOS almost at $5. Jesus Christ, man. This one overshooting my area. What area was it in yesterday? Yeah, it's actually breaking out fully. Wow, powerful. It's in no man's land right now. I do think that's going to likely rally up to like 5.30 to $5.5. Looks good. Neo, same thing. Well, it's right at its last weekly high, but with everything else taking out that last weekly high, it's probably going to take it out as well. It's very, very likely to take it out as well. Next major area is going to be somewhere around here between 14.5 to $15. And it's in no man's land as well. Do you think that it heads up there? Looking good. Sorry, whoops, wrong one. Tron Cash, what are we doing here? Same chart, getting above the last prior weekly high. Probably going to float its way onwards to 2.7, maybe 3 cents. Bcash, not actually at its last weekly high. So I would look for resistance right around 4.85, a laggard. Zcash, same thing, laggard. Nowhere near the last prior weekly high at 115.5. Gonna follow the rest of the market, but a laggard as well. Weak, relatively weak. Okay, cool. And then also, remember that's Litecoin. Litecoin was the big bad deal just a few weeks ago, actually getting its first higher high. Or sorry, it was a couple weeks ago on a weekly schedule of the majors. So that also just kind of rounded out the overall bullish bias. This is probably going to sound a lot like a lot of what's it called? A lot of hindsight analysis, but understand that if you are new to this channel, we've been talking about this the whole damn time. I just want to follow up on it so that you can see that over time, that if you trust in these things, they typically do work out in your favor, especially when it's on a higher time frame. It's just, it takes a lot of patience because we've been talking about this for, months and months on end, but now when it actually happens, that's a time to actually pay attention and see what the result is so that you can have it ingrained into you in the future and understand how those sorts of things operate. Or at least I'd hope that would be valuable in some way. Anyways, still about to be, I guess I'm about to be surprised if this video actually does have sound or not. I'm about to hit the button to stop recording, but I feel like I might be missing something else. I suppose we'll just briefly wrap up the short-term and medium-term time frame picture. For actually just closed relatively strongly. I do think that is probably going to get a drive to about 10.3, 10.250 to 10.3 region, and then I would likely be looking for a short-term top being put on Bitcoin, and we'll probably come back down and consolidate at the very least and test around like 10,000 even. But I would keep that area in mind on 9,750, especially when CME is open. There does seem to be a tendency that CME gap likes to be filled sometimes like right around open. So I would say right around CME open around 5 p.m. Eastern time is going to be a time to really be present. And then also around tomorrow morning, Monday morning, that is, New York Stock Exchange open at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as well, are going to be like two hot areas historically speaking for price action to kind of come down and have those quick flashes to fill gaps, if that is going to be the way that it comes from. But it's really all going to be revealed on how strong today closes, and then that will kind of set in the bias for this next few weeks of, do we continue onwards and upwards into the 11,000, 12,000 region, or does Bitcoin actually pop back down, test that region first, give you another potentially massively generous buy, and then bounce from there. Of course, I am overall bullish. I'm medium term, long term, macro term bullish as long as Bitcoin is closing higher time frames, at the very least a 12-hour daily preferred, and higher time frames meaning like 3-day weekly above 9,550 to 9,600. That means that Bitcoin can come all the way back down there. I wouldn't have any issue with that at all whatsoever. Doesn't mean that I'm going to be 100% right on it, but it just offers up a nice edge, as that's where things would actually change. Market structure would be destroyed at that point, and I look for a quick move down to like 9,200 and probably beyond after that. But that's well and far away right now. By the same token, for the lower term time frames, well, we already kind of just discussed them. Now, if Bitcoin were to take off like right from here, which I think is a little bit less likely to happen, especially granted off the probability chart, if Bitcoin were to close, let's say, a 4-hour above 10,300, I would look for an extension to about 10,550, 10,600, and very, very likely another pullback from there. So that's what I'd be looking at right now. Generally speaking, I'm looking for a little bit more continuation to about 10,250, 10,3. Probably local top gets put in, and then we come back tomorrow and analyze whatever the fuck's on the board. With all of that said, I want to wish you well. I want to wish you a nice and profitable, also peaceful Sunday morning. Like I said, I'll try to be back on Twitch a little bit later, do a little bit of gaming, do a little bit of live streaming, and you're more than welcome to join on in. The link is in the description below. As always, take care, and until next time.